Boom, baby, we're live. What's up, guys? We're going to talk about mastering men's dating strategies today with the co host of the game room. We never really did an official introduction. It is Paul from Apex Mindset. I'm speaking a little fast because the breaker keeps tripping in my house and the power keeps getting knocked off. It's wild weather today here in Florida. So if I disappear, I will return from a laptop or something. Paul,
Right.
thank you for joining me on my ghetto stream.
The ghetto
I'm sure
stream, dude, is the best
are,
ones.
are happy to be watching us.
The best ones. The best streams are the ghetto streams. Hopefully, I'm
Yes.
streaming to my shit too. I think I might be. I don't know.
You get the press at the bottom and you hit the go live and you'll be good to go. We are on YouTube and Twitch and X and Rumble. And we are live to, yes, we are broadcasting live to your X right now, Paul.
Okay, cool. I'm
So,
gonna try to make it my YouTube also. I don't know why I didn't.
guys, we have a great show.
I can do it while we're talking though. Is that a big deal?
Yeah, go for it. We have a great show for you today, guys, because as you know, on the game room here, we are just trying to tell you guys what clearly works in dating and what clearly does not work. So you have a frame of reference to not go out there and mess it up. Paul's here in America. I'm in America. He's in up north. I'm in Florida. And yeah, today we're going to kind of interview Paul and talk about, your origin story. And yeah, just kind of tell the guys who you are, because I have a tremendous amount of respect for you. I respect you so much. I don't even know why you hang out with me. I'm like,
Because you're a lot of fun, man, and you're pretty fucking cool. Come on now.
yeah, I do. I'm okay. I'm okay. But yeah, man, we've had some wild times together, and Jesus Christ, man. Paul is the Chad incarnation. I think you guys can learn a lot from his story, because I went through a pretty bad time in 2021. I had a pretty bad breakup. I talk about it on my live stream, the heartbreak story. Paul and Ryan Fowler were the two guys to help me get over that. And, what it did for my life, my clarity, my vision, and my focus. Because after that, I was a motherfucking monster in business, even more, because I unloaded so much baggage. And really, look, Paul and I are basically, like, for lack of better words, we just been players for life. And we're kind of naturally in tune with, like, that masculine drive that most men have lost these days, which is go out, talk to women. Yes, it's okay. Yes, you can be in a relationship. You can talk to girls, you don't have to be a fucking simp and, supplicate to her, and you can do things your own way, and women like that. And I think that's the ideal way, where the man leads, woman follows. So Paul's taught me a lot about that, matured my game a lot. And yeah, I mean, Paul, you're the man, bro. Why don't you just tell them, like, where you're from, and then, like, about your whole story.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where to start, right? So, I mean, but I can, give it a shot. I think a good way to start is to kind of, like, help guys too, especially the younger guys, understand, like, it's kind of like what you make into yourself, not necessarily how you start, really, if that makes any sense. I had really good, in fact, I'm going to show you something. This is cool. If I reach that out, this. All right, so this is my let's see if I can. That's my grandfather. All right, so that's his Golden Gloves, because he was Golden Gloves champ, 1937, 1938. Golden Gloves back in the day, and he was a fucking killer in business. He's also, he shot a couple people before. That's pretty interesting as a civilian. So this is from a news article when he owned a. Oh, there we go. You guys can see it. Okay. Anyways, so that's him. That's a news article from when he shot a dude in the arm who's trying to rob at the hardware store. The guy had a shotgun, and he took out his .22, shot him in the arm. Then he chased him down the street, and he pinned him down, whatever, turned him into the cops. And in the interview, they asked him, well, how come you only shot him in the arm? He's like, well, the guy wasn't going to kill anybody. I could just tell. So I didn't want to kill the guy, so maybe he learned his lesson. That's just kind of like how he rolled, how it was. He grew up really hard, And he became a very hard man, but he's also a very kind man and very chilled out. He was just grandpa to me, you know, and that was my male role model. He sat me down when I was about, I'm trying to think how old I was, maybe 8 or 9, maybe 9, maybe 9 years old, something like that. It was at his house in, you know, Allen Park, Michigan. He said that back in the day they had like, I don't know what it was that generation, but they had like a room that nobody went into. It was like the front room that everything was dusted and perfect that you would see when you'd walk in the house, but like nobody hung out there. You know what I mean? Everyone hung out in the rest of the parts of the house. Anyway, so that's that generation. And I remember he took me to the pristine room no one goes into, sat me down, you know, away from everybody else during something like Easter, I think it was. And he was like, so you're doing that, the Taekwondo stuff, the karate stuff, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Whatever. I like it. He's like, are you sure you really like it? I'm like, yeah, no, I do. I like it. He goes, okay, well, I want you to promise me something. He goes, I want you to promise me that you'll never quit. And I'm like, what? You know, I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, no, I want you to promise me you'll never quit. And he goes, when I always trained in something, you know, I was a boxer. And then he was like, and when your Uncle Jimmy was, you know, getting into stuff, I took him to karate classes and I went up in some belts. And he goes, it's not about the belts. It doesn't matter. It's just about training. And then when your Uncle Dave, he was going through stuff, it was like judo. Actually, I think Uncle Jimmy was judo and Uncle Dave was taekwondo or karate or something back in like the 50s and stuff when it was like, you know, they beat up white people for doing that. Like, you know, it was like a hard time back then. Right. And then he was like, he goes, cause you never know. He goes, you never know as a man when you're going to have to protect your family. Right. And so that was his mindset. And it was like, oh, okay. I remember that conversation very distinctly. And he always had firearms stashed all over the place. When he passed away, we found like all kinds of firearms, like, you know, under the car seats, you know what I mean? All kinds of places. That's just who he was, you know? And he was pretty good in business, worth a few million by the time he passed away too. Mm-hmm. So this was him. He was my role model growing up. So that's
he sounds like I was gonna say he sounds like a classic alpha kind of guy.
Completely. Yeah, completely. And you know, so he was like my male role model, and it kind of starts there. You have to have somebody that you look up to. It's a good thing to have, you know, and I think young people today don't have that. Now, my biological father was not a good role model. You know, he diagnosed, you know, antisocial personality disorder, involved in some minor crimes, mostly fraud and trafficking and shit like that. Like the guy was a douchebag and he was also abusive, right?
Still alpha though.
Well, actually, he was kind of a pussy, to be honest, though. And so that kind of was upsetting. I didn't have a cool organized crime Tony Soprano dad. Well, no, yeah. I got this fucking little weenie that would beat up on me when I was too young to defend myself. But that changed around teenage years. I threw him out of the house. Mm-hmm. So these are things like hardships I think a lot of people don't go through nowadays. Some people do, of course, but you know, the police and CPS are on their shit a little bit more now, maybe than they were back in the 80s and 90s. But that's okay. You know what I mean? I saw he didn't have any honor to him. You know, he was very dishonorable is the best way to describe it. And he wasn't, we could say his criminality was like, at least not, it had some alpha traits there, but really though, he was very weak, you know, as a person. Like he was somebody who cowered and used being like weak as a means to manipulate people. Do you know what I mean? Acted incompetent intentionally, stuff like that. And so it was kind of the opposite. He almost played the opposite role of that. Drove, you know, which made my mom a little bit insane, you know, and then threw him out of the house when he was, you know, when I was a teenager. And so that's kind of that, right? So it's like, you know, inside you, there are two wolves, whatever the fuck that is. But, you know, I could have gone in a direction of criminality. I had a lot of criminal friends growing up. I never did that. It wasn't the direction I wanted to go in. You get to choose who you want to mentor, who you want to mentor you. You get to make that decision. You're not saddled with it. After a certain point, you can make a decision and make a choice. Do you know what I mean? And so I made a choice to kind of model after my grandfather, who was a good man overall, and a very alpha guy and very accomplished. And it was a lot of focus on like being a man. That was like a big thing. Nowadays, younger people are, told being a man is toxic or something, and they have to be more like women, and they're subtly told that, and it's very damaging to young boys. But I think that if you're a young guy, if you're especially a teenager, young 20 something coming across our stream right now, seeking out mentors, that's I think a positive thing. So I had that going for me, which by the time I was a teenager, I was known as somebody who could beat people up, so I had that in my back pocket, if anything. And I wasn't out trying to beat people up, but I mean, it was like I was training at the boxing gym, and the kickboxing gym and stuff like that. I was teaching too. Once I turned 16, I could drive. I was teaching because I could drive myself to the school. I teach kids and I teach adults. Just they're, doing some, holding, pads for them, showing them the basics, getting them going and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. Good question I spotted in the chat here. It was my grandfather on my mom's side. So I wasn't really that close with family on my dad's side, due to how he was. I mean, there was my aunt and uncle were pretty cool. I remember that, liking them. I was good with my grandma. She just died early. And my grandfather on that side died when I was really young, so never got to know him. You know what I mean? And so, and then there's the rest I just never really dealt with very much because of the nature of how my father was. So that was that growing up thing. Now, with all of that stuff, all these alpha traits and all this stuff, I had no understanding or idea about how to handle women. Like zero fucking understanding.
Yeah, you didn't. You didn't have like this like typical. I was a nerd and I got beat up, and then I read, some red.
Then I read Rollo Tomasi's book,
and then Rational Male, and I became an alpha male.
Rational Male, and I don't know, my favorite X-Men or some shit, and those two things squared me away. No, I like I kind of grew up having to fight because I was like, when I was in elementary school, I had some physical things going on with me, like ailments and stuff, which caused me to get my ass beat as an elementary school kid. So I had to that's what got me into like, I better take some karate classes. I'm getting my ass kicked, and that's fine. And then I stopped getting my ass kicked. You beat up a few kids that are a couple years older than you and bigger than you, that changes things. And that's the end of that, So, I mean, it was pretty easy upbringing other than that, as far as, that stuff's concerned. There was no more bullying when you could kick their ass, So that was, but it was really just, just not like no role model when it came to getting women. I had my mother, who was essentially raising me, who, it's the thing I say about single moms. It's like single moms can be the best single mom in the world, and she's still not a fucking dad. You know what I mean? It's just, you need dads, you need a good, strong male leader in the household. Those of you who are listening to us need to become that. If you're listening to us, you have a lot of my clients too. They have kids, they have families. You need to be that strong male leader. You need to do that for your kids. Your sons and daughters need it, And so I didn't really have that. And so my mom and my grandfather wasn't having talks with me about girls. He really wasn't having talks with me about shit. We would hang out and do stuff, and every now and then he would like impart a little bit of the lesson. But his whole thing on women were like, it's just like, women, He's like, like there's whatever, women just being women. Like, it was kind of like, that was his mindset, like whatever, and he had a fucking girlfriend and a wife, and that was it till he died. That was his deal. It's just women being women. Didn't take anything they did seriously at all.
Yep.
So I learned. Yeah. Oh yeah. He had a mistress for like 40 years.
I feel like that's much more common here than what's accepted nowadays.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, because so he got married. My grandma rather was the hot chick who was like 17, 18 years old, and he was 10 years older.
Mm-hmm.
And, everyone supported that relationship, I guess. And, today I would be like, don't marry a 17-year-old. You know what I mean? That's not my advice, of course. Well, but he paid the price. He paid that price though, because she was not the perfect woman. If you know what I'm saying, she was real bitchy to him and real, she was my grandma though. She was great to me. Like, I don't know the difference as a kid, but she was real bitchy, complaining, not very grateful, never worked a day in her life because he provided for her. And she just didn't, she took a lot of that for granted, and, had a lot of problems with my aunt, my mom's oldest, sister, ended up like splitting ties with her. You know what I mean? I think she's deceased now. Because, just not properly raising that firstborn because of the way grandma was. And, that was so some of the mistakes of my grandfather really came down to when it came to raising children, choosing a good wife or whatever. Not that she was a bad wife, but she just was kind of a bitchy. And so she would, just kind of push him away, be bitchy all the time. But you're Catholic and you take care of your people, and that's it. Like, he was very much like, well, you just take care of your people. She's my wife. I take care of her. That's the end of it. Like, she's bitchy. Oh, well, that's women being women. I guess I'll find another one and take care of this one. I guess I have to make more money so I can take care of more bitches. That was his mindset. You know what I mean? He didn't challenge any of it. He didn't go,
classic alpha.
Yeah. Seriously though, he's like, oh, it's miserable at home. I guess I'm working more. Quote. See you later. It's like, this is but he never he wasn't like yeller. He wasn't he wasn't like he could fuck somebody up. I watched him in his. It had to have been in his late 60s, maybe early. No, it had to have been in his early 70s. He almost fucked a dude up. Like, he was like some guy. He was going to the racetrack. This is really funny. We're going to the racetrack, and I'm in the back seat. And some dude, another old fart who was taking tickets for parking. And now my grandfather used to own part of one of the racetracks. All right. And so he had like VIP privileges. Like, you didn't fucking, you treated my grandfather a certain way. That was the rules there. Right. And so like, he's pulling up, and this fucking old guy's like, oh, it's $10 or something for parking, whatever it was. And he's like, I don't pay parking. I'm on the VIP list. And then the guy goes, well, you got to pay for parking. We're not taking any. He called him a freeloader. The insults are very interesting back then, right? Like, from that generation. He goes, we don't want any freeloaders around here. He goes, what'd you say? And he opens the door. He goes to open the door. My grandma's grabbing him. No, Jim, don't. This dude's like, holy shit. He's like, oh yeah, I'm a freeloader, huh? Like, he's like, gonna fuck him up, dude. It was so funny. I was like, I've never seen him mad before. But someone like my grandma talks shit to him all the time. He never got mad, never showed any emotion. Some dude taking a parking ticket calls him a freeloader. He's gonna fuck this guy up now. Like, he's gonna. And so it was just so funny. It was so fucking funny. And he ended up not. The guy's like, all right, you go right ahead, whatever. He's like, God damn it, I will go right ahead. And they talked to it.
It's a good story because it shows the lineage. So like after you got out of high school, I feel like you told me you got in a relationship pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. So now getting into it, right? Like the girls part, I was the master at the friend zone. Like, all through my teenage years. Like, I didn't get laid till 19, not because of any sort of morality. I mean, I guess there was some morality. I wasn't going to take advantage of a girl in a bad way. So I did turn down a couple of scenarios that I thought were like that. But like, there were a lot of opportunities that just blew as a teenager because I would friend zone myself, because my mom, her coaching was like, be the beta guy that I wish I fell for one of these times. Like, I was like, my mom, to her credit, she never brought like besides my father, She never brought like other guys she would date. She wouldn't bring these assholes around and, okay, you treat him like he's your, you treat his stepdad like he's your dad. Like it wasn't any of that kind of stuff. She wasn't bringing the toxic guys around all the time. She was she was a professional. My mom was actually pretty intelligent IQ wise. And so like she shielded us from a lot of potential bad shit when it came to guys. But like her mindset, like she, just like any woman falls for a dominant masculine guy. That's what she's going to go for. But she's a fucking strong woman, whatever that is, right? She's had to be strong. She didn't want to be. She wanted to be a housewife, but she felt like she had to be. And so because of that, you know, she would dominance test guys and shit and, you know, end up with a guy who's like kind of an alpha guy, but then she would kind of blow it with that guy. Or the guy, like, for example, one guy she dated was one of my kickboxing instructors and coaches. She was dating him for a number of years. The guy was, you know, he was an okay guy, but he wasn't, you know, wasn't established, didn't have his shit together. He was just fucking coaching kickboxing and doing odd jobs. You know what I mean? She's like, oh, I'll pick him, you know? Well, yeah, it's not going to go well. And so at any rate, you know, she was trying to make me, she's trying to make me like into the beta guy that she was never attracted to. You know what I mean? Because she's like, if you're just a nice boy, everything will work out. It's like, it's not how the fucking world is. And that's not even how I'm wired, you know, like doesn't even work for me. And so I found myself really torn growing up because I would try to be this nice guy, this placating guy, but then I had this other side of me who was very capable of not being nice. So it was incongruent. I didn't have this congruence. And so I would turn off women. They would know like, oh, okay, this guy's trying so hard to like please me or placate to me or whatever. I'm just turned off. I'm going to go sleep with the drug dealer. That's what I'm going to go do. And so they would, you know, so, and I could never figure it out. Why are these women, you know, throwing their pussies at dudes who don't care about them, who treat them like shit, who, you know, are the guys who can get the drugs or the alcohol. That's where their pussy's going. And then they come to me with their problems. They come to me when they need help. You know what I mean? But no pussy in this champagne room. Like, what's going on? You know, I couldn't figure out like what was going on. I obviously figured it out later, but when I was younger, I just couldn't figure it out. And I'd have and what it boils down to is that women are attracted to dominance. And they're attracted to survivable traits. And when you're too nice of a guy and placating and putting her on a pedestal and trying to be her servant, you're signaling that you're not that guy. That's all it boils down to. But I didn't know that. Nobody taught me that. You know what I mean? So there was this incongruence, and I would get myself into these like shitty situations with women all the time where I was either getting friend zoned or like just fucking whatever. Right. And then, yeah, then I got laid finally when I was 19, and I started also bouncing, started working different really shitty bars that where shootings and fights would happen all the time. And for some reason I was like attracted to danger, you know, because I was doing all this training, you know, yeah, let's put it to work. Right. So like
this is in Detroit.
Yeah. Detroit and Windsor, also across in Canada.
What year? It's like early 2000s.
Yeah, before that, like 90, 97, 98, 99, 98, 99 kind of thing. Pre 9/11.
Cruising those mean streets with no internet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no shit. You didn't have online dating back then. You had to go to a bar and punch a guy and this guy's, you know, punch some girl's boyfriend in the face and steal her that way. You know, like that was what you had to do. Start a gang fight and then, you know, and steal the girl when the gang's not looking. You know, you had to get creative. Hey, you know, you didn't have social media. People didn't dime each other out the way they do now. So yeah, so it was interesting. You know, I would see how these girls would act, and I kind of saw what was going on, and I guess you could say that was my red pilling moment. It's just like, yeah, okay, there's a lot more nuance here. I had women, I had fallen to the same sort of, and I had this going for a while. A lot of guys make this mistake, and I think it has something to do with their evolution as well. There's probably evolutionary theory behind it, but falling into that mistake of, you know, the Madonna whore complex. So falling into that mistake of some women are good women and these other women are bad women.
I think
And
you
so
should explain the Madonna whore complex. I don't think people know what that means.
Yeah. So it's the Madonna whore terminology comes from Freud. I think it's either Freud or I'm pretty sure it's Freud. And so it goes back pretty far. You can probably chat GPT it or something. But yeah, but the idea of the complex is it's this splitting. So, and this is something that you guys, as a lesson, you need to be very careful of when taking dating advice on the internet, something that John and I are very careful of when we deliver the advice. And that's trying to come up with simple explanations for complex things, especially when it comes to human behavior. And usually that falls into binaries, meaning one or the other. It's the same. It's a way that a stupid low IQ brain can compartmentalize and think through things. This is so it appeals to the lowest of the IQ. And this is why in politics, usually it's a two-party system, because to think in a complexity of 3 or 4 parties is too much for most people who are thinking like below 90 IQ, and so, we tend to like instinctually put things into binary extremes. So one of those is, well, girls are either whores and they just have sex with dudes and they don't care and they're not loyal, not faithful. They're fun to have in the bedroom, but they're not, somebody you want to have kids with. Or they're like, they're the Madonna. They're the, not Madonna the singer, but the Virgin Mary archetype, meaning that they're pious and pure and they can't do anything wrong. And it's this binary extreme and it's this mistake of thinking that fundamentally good women think like good women and fundamentally bad women think like bad women. And those are your two distinctions. So you have to pick a good woman to settle down with. And, I guess I probably for good reason, but as well as unfortunately, when you're trying to figure it out, people are more complex than that. People are not binary extremes like that. So women are complex. Every woman that's a good woman wants to be a bad girl. That's just the right context in which she is the bad girl. And every bad girl has probably wanted to be a good girl, but maybe she just made different choices, or maybe she can't. Maybe her wiring system prevents her from doing that or being that. But there's gray, it's all this gray area in between. And this is why we talk about frame a lot, because if you're in a long-term relationship or even just a healthy casual dating scenario, you want to have frame where you have that girl in line with your values and core beliefs. Doesn't matter whether you can't get upset if you find out that she's inclined to do horse stuff, because they're all inclined to do horse stuff, but they're also all inclined to turn away from that, from the risk that the horse stuff implies for them. And so you're looking for girls who make good choices, but not necessarily girls who have, good or bad instincts. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, no, what up? Anyway, but not necessarily because their instincts. Every girl's monkey brain is a fucking turbo whore that wants to just hop on dick all day. Like seriously, like the monkey part of her brain wants that. It's the more protective parts of her brain that creates hypergamy and creates scenarios where she doesn't do that. This is why most girls are not Lily Phillips, for example. Do you know what I mean? Where they're just running through them. Like there's something wrong with her wiring, or we could say an anomaly with her wiring to cause her to feel a sense of reward for doing that. Most women are not that way, but that doesn't mean that they're relationship material either. So it's really a gray area, and you have to sort of, suss it out. You know what I mean? You have to sort of feel out the nuances. But I had that idea when I was younger, like, oh, there's these good girls and these bad girls. And I started to but then I also got the idea of like, wait a second, it was really just out of frustration. It wasn't really game yet. It was like, I didn't get game till I was about 21. All right. So like before that, I was like, fuck, dude, I am just making myself available and basically doing whatever these girls want to please them. Well, they go off and fuck some random dude or fuck some guy with this feral state in their mind, like, oh, I hate it, but you can just see it. Like you can see their fucking, it's like I don't know, like a 28 days later shit. It's like their eyes glaze over and they're gonna fuck this guy and no one can stop them. And you like watch it in real time because you know a lot of girls in your circles. I'm the friend zone champion at this time, right? As a younger teen, 18, 19. And so like it's like, what in the fuck is happening? How is it that a guy like myself, who's in shape, decent enough looking, does all the things for them?
Yeah.
Why did they treat it like fucking trash? And then they know I would be interested. They fucking know it.
Yeah.
But then their eyes glaze over like 28 days later and they're fucking all of a sudden jump on his penis, like to some other like, what is going on? And then they're not even guys who are like, I always thought, well, the tougher, more alpha guy, like, the love story was Rambo 2. You know what I mean? Like Rambo's like, oh, I got to go back to killing. And his little Asian Vietnamese girlfriend's like, no, don't leave me. And that was what I thought. Like it was like, this is like knew nothing, right? No one is teaching me. So
that's a great synopsis there.
So I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's the guy I'm going to be, Rambo 2. And no, it just doesn't fucking work. Girls aren't going for you like that.
So would you, could we say at one point you were a gym cell because you had the muscles, you were jacked?
That's a good way to say it. Sure.
You were frustrated.
By today's standards, that's a good way to say it. I mean, I didn't get this sort of jacked, like 240 pounds of jacked till later in life, but I was in shape and fighting. Like it was competitive martial arts or different types of martial arts. So I was a gym cell in that sense. I was in the martial arts, gym probably 3 or 4 days a week. And then I was lifting on top of it.
Good times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it just goes like, I just, I keep telling guys like, sometimes I get laughed at for being a dating coach, right? But if people actually knew how many men are just operating a day-to-day life right now with just a truckload of sexual frustration, and like still carrying the load for the family himself, whatever he's doing, with like very little praise, so like it's hard for the guys out there. And like if you like the thing that, look, I'm an everyman, you're an everyman as well, and we didn't have to use Bugattis to get girls or have
I was poor until like a few years ago.
Yeah, bro.
I'm new money, bro. Like I don't even know. You know what I mean?
Same, bro. Same. I was a broke guy, and I was just I was a smooth talker. And you just honestly, I think universally, because I used to go to the gym a lot too. I would live in the university gym because I was broke, so I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go get jacked, right. And then man, and then I kind of saw the pieces come together. But I know what you mean about being in that friend zone. But the good thing about being in that friend zone is you can really get a glimpse into girl world and be like, okay, these how
that was the benefit, dude.
This is how they're predatorial,
I couldn't understand it, and it was like so. It blew apart my Madonna whore complex idea thing, because I was like, the nicest girls get 28 days later glazed over for some, like, and she knows. She's like, yeah, like, well, I'm gonna go see so and so tonight. We'll see how it goes. And you look at her face, and you're just like, she's gonna fuck that guy, like against his will. She is going for his penis, dude. He can do nothing about this. And it's like, how? Like, and I'm like, what? Like, I didn't understand. I'm like, how come no one's going for my penis? Like, I didn't get it at 18, 19 until I had finally got a girl to do that for me. And so the first girl who slept with me was like, I think it's because she slept with everyone else. And there wasn't anyone left. So then there was me. so that's what it was. And because I wasn't closing any deal. I was like, have a seat. Let's talk about your feelings in your childhood. Like I was like everyone's therapist, which would just dry their pussies right up, So that was me, 17, 18. Well, tell me about your trauma, and they're like, oh, and you're such a nice guy. And then but I'm gonna fuck this other guy. You know, and you're like, what's happening? And so then this one, there was no stopping her. She was going after me, you know, and she was cute at the time, and she knew a lot about sex because she's had sex with everybody. So I learned a lot about sex for a few months, but I also knew too that was gonna blow up and end because she has no ability to like be in a relationship. Like I knew that. And so I was okay with that. When that blew up, I was fine with it. But then I realized like a couple of things. Well, and we'll sort of back it up back to the friend zone thing, because this is a really good lesson. I also, after that, I finally was like, first of all, I like sex. Sex is way too awesome for me just to not do this with people. So I'm fucking done with whatever the bullshit I was doing, not doing that anymore. We're going to start fucking broads because this is what's happening now. Right. So like we're going to make this happen. And then the next thing was like, so all these friend zone girls, I'm done being treated. Like I finally got my balls. It was like, I'm done being treated like somebody's fucking doormat. Yeah. I'm just done. You know, I can be friends with girls, I'll be platonic, have girls in social circles who I'm not interested in that way. And that's totally fine. But if I'm interested in somebody, I'm not going to play this thing where I'm playing their friend and I'm not, and they have to pretend like I'm just their friend when they know that I want more. And then they sit there and cuck me every day. Like I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? So I finally I remember distinctly telling 2 different girls that were my friends that I wanted to date. I was like, you know what? This friendship's just not going to work with me anymore because I want to take you on a date. I want more than a friendship. I think you know that. And I think we're just playing this game where we pretend that that's not true. And as much as I like you as a person and you're great, it's torture for me to watch you, you know, keep going back to the same ex or doing some of the stupid things you're doing, knowing I'm fucking right here. Like that's not going to work for me anymore. So we're either going on a date or we're just not going to be friends for a while. You know, what was you going to say?
Did you ever get a girl you lusted after pre-game?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. So this was like, so this is the story on that. So like I told this to 2 different girls, same story. Both girls got mad. Oh, you're not a good friend and this and that and the other. And I'm just like, listen, I don't care anymore. Like, I don't care to be your friend. It's nothing against you, but why should I sit here and put my needs and wants aside just so you can go fuck losers? I'm not interested. You know what I mean? That was I'm like, it's not like you're with a great boyfriend. You're just fucking losers. And, you know, if you're going to go fuck losers and not explore something better with me, I'm just not interested. And being willing to walk away from those things. So both girls got mad. Conversations ended. I ended up having sex with one of the girls like 2 weeks later. So she ended up because
pitched.
What?
One of the 2 that you pitched?
Yes. Yeah.
50% close rate. Bravo.
Right. I mean, no game, not bad for no game. And so my thing was like, all I'm going to do is start setting my fucking standards here.
Yeah.
For how I'm going to be treated.
Fuck or walk, sister. You know?
Yeah, that's it. I'm just going to set a standard. I don't have any game yet, but I have enough self-esteem now.
You have self-respect. Yeah, self-respect is a good place to start with dating.
100%. And so once I started doing that, all of a sudden I started getting dates, and then I started learning the nuance of like, I already kind of knew how to talk to women. I just didn't know how to present myself. What was missing was having standards. When you don't have standards, when you placate to women, when you're simping, especially simping right now, you send the most unattractive signals to these women because their brain is wired to not mate downward. So like if you just can be a person who is not below them just by setting your standards of how you expect to be treated, not simping for them, all of a sudden, like you're not below them, right? You could be above them. And usually they'll take it as a signal of you being above them because most guys do simp for them. The prettier they are, the harder the simping. And the more people placate. So as soon as you're not doing that, you just send a signal right away that you're hypergamously a better choice and worth mating. They will think about it. They will explore it. It's so easy, that part. But guys have to do it mentally. And so I started learning that, you know.
And it's so rampant nowadays. It's like a norm.
Oh, it is.
Even these streamers, these crypto guys,
Yeah.
Oh my God, bro. They ruined the game for everybody,
Mhm.
you know? Because you know what it is, dude? I really think this is a little aside, but I really think a lot of American guys have mommy issues. I really think
They do.
that's a very
Well,
American centric thing. We should do an episode on that.
yeah, for sure. Well, and the other thing too is, you know, they're by outsourcing their personal relationships to the internet,
Hmm.
especially if they grew up doing that. So these Zoomers and stuff, you're not using all of the parts of your brain that are designed for you to bond with others and see people as real people.
Yeah.
So this is where, you know, dating becomes a transactional checklist now instead of dealing with another human being, because it's like there's a human behind there, but the screen takes away all of your senses. So it's like you're not able to use your sense of smell and touch and tonality and recognizing voice recognitions and all of these things. You're not having a real interaction with somebody. You're having this
Mm.
suppressed version, which makes people more psychopathic. So it's really internet induced psychopathy. If you go
Mm.
to Twitter, that's what you see. People just absolutely not treating each other like human beings.
Dude,
And
no. I make a point throughout the day to put my phone down and just not touch it
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
I do it
crazy.
all the time.
It
Put the
pulls
phone
it pulls you in, you know?
down. Mhm. Oh, it can, especially in positions like, well, what we do a lot on the internet. So we have to shield ourselves, because if we're on the internet all the time, we're on the screens, then we're doing research, we're doing this, we're working a lot. All of a sudden, we can get sucked into, you know, seeing our human relationships like this, and we have to step away from that and meet real people. But this is why also I you know, meeting people in real life, cold
Yes.
approach or social circle game is so much more effective for
Yes.
really everybody, but
Yeah.
particularly guys who are not the top 1%. Because when you're in front of a girl, you tap into her other senses. If you have
Mm.
game, you can do that. There's plenty of girls who would see me and maybe see my picture or whatever and be like, oh no, he's too this, he's too that, he's too whatever. I don't care, because I know when I'm in front of them, all I have to do is hit those little senses. And it's like, if they're if they're in the realm of being genetically attracted to me, they're
Mhm.
just gonna get pulled into a web. And
Right.
it's over. It's fucking over, dude, for them. Like the same, and was when I was dating. I mean, I have my girlfriend now, so I'm not out dating, right? But like the same, you know, girls that would maybe discount me, just because for whatever reason. Most of that's ego protecting. That's another thing guys need to realize. When girls sit there and say, "Oh, I have this unreasonable checklist for a man," she's just protecting her own ego. She's just
Mm.
protecting herself from rejection in a
Yeah.
shitty dating market where guys are really critical and girls are really, really critical of each other. Everybody's critical of each other. They're just protecting themselves. As soon as you have a real conversation with them and you tap into those little senses that don't get touched when they're on their phone, all of a sudden areas of their body start getting, a little bit hot, a little bit more heated up, in a good way for them. All of a sudden they start having emotions and feelings that they're not really, I didn't expect to have this, and I would get so many times, like so many times I'd get like, wow, I don't know what it is. You're not even my type, but I'm so into you. I'm so attracted to you or whatever. Usually after a few sex romps, you know what I mean? And so like, yeah, you induce orgasm a bunch of times. You know how to game them, you know how to make them feel good. Like all of that bullshit, all the looks maxing, all that shit. It's all in the toilet. It's all gay, dude. It's fucking very gay, actually. And so,
Yeah.
and the girls are not turned on by that, dude. They're not turned on by like some guy like I'm hitting myself with a hammer and then I do my eyeliner or something. I do my makeup a certain way so that when I go out, I look like I have chiseled cheekbones and just bullshit stuff. Like God, girls are grossed out by that
But
shit.
honestly, though, at its core, that is extremely feminine behavior.
Yeah, extremely feminine. Well, we've gone further and further into a gynocentric social order. So now men are taking a female centered view of themselves. Men are acting like women when they're young. The younger Zoomer guys who are looking to attract women look to guys like Clavicular, and who also, his game revolves around trying to look smacks. And so they think that's what it is. It's just like a girl. It's like a girl wanting to wear the right push-up bra and wanting to wear the certain type of shoes that makes her calves look good, and the makeup a certain way. And now they got all kinds of shit, fake butts in the pants and things to suck their fat in and all that bullshit. Like, this is what girls are doing to try to present. And guys, of course, get internet brain, because when you take a 2-dimensional photo with fucking filters and you put it on your Instagram, and they're wearing tons of bullshit, and they're filtering their hips to be fucking huge and their waistline to be really tiny. And it's not how they look in real life. You know what I mean? And you're just like, this is not what real girls look like. And they're not. It's not even. When you meet and have sex with real women, you're like, that's not even attractive. It's fake. It's like guys falling for like fucking anime girls or some shit. It's like, dude, that's cool. No. It's a cartoon, man. What the fuck's wrong with you?
I'm going to read the super chat and we're going to get back to the interview. Mr. Wolf, thank you for the $10. I think also being able to walk away from a sexual offer from a woman who isn't treating you well signals having self-respect. Most guys would crumble for the sex. They desire you even more. Yeah, like, dude, yeah, look, if a woman is doing some shit that annoys you and you're like, hey, listen, this really fucking annoys me. Because, it's funny that the early success that you do have was rooted in frame.
Yes, 100%.
And that's what most guys, I would say, if we had to put men mandatorily through a camp, I think frame would be the one that would just like, you need to go learn how to have some self-respect and boundaries, because these, dude, not to like sound like Mr. Red Pill, but I'm like in culture shock still being back in America, just to see how women think they can like talk to these men, but the guys don't say anything. They don't say anything. And it's for me, it's just remarkable to see, because even in Japan, the Japanese guys don't play. They'll look, they're like, hey, pitch, they're like, oh, all right, bowing and apologizing. Like, everybody freaks out. There is still extreme amounts of social order in Asia where the balances are, men lead, women follow. And here it's just in such disarray. So when I see it, every day, I'm like, oh my God, like, this is not on the internet. This is in front of me. So like, I think the guys really, if you're watching us now, like it takes time to learn this stuff, but if you're watching like every episode and tuning in, you're going to get it eventually. Just like his grandfather's saying, just don't quit. You have to keep going. So after you started getting these chicks, because I know you got married at one point.
Right? Yeah. So I started getting chicks and I started getting laid and I started having multiple girls I was seeing. And, like, again, a lot of stuff I learned when you see how girls act when they want to get into a club, or when they, what they'll do to status compete with their friends. Like, you start learning lots of lessons. Like, girls do most of what they do when they go out on a girls' night or whatever is, even if they end up fucking a guy, most of what they're doing is to compete with their girlfriends. So like, I learned like early on that a lot of game is making them feel elevated from their peer group. You know what I mean? If they feel like they're winning above their peer group by going with you, you're succeeding right there, because women look for social proof.
And then comes sabotage.
Yep. And so they're internal and innately wired to look for social proof. And so when they see a guy with women or talking to other women or have women that enjoy his company, or other women like that guy, that's one form of social proof. But another is, feeling like they're winning a competition with their girlfriend, which is why explains a lot of why female social groups, you might have, why is it that the heavier set one who's not quite as attractive as the other two girls, for example, why is she always the mouthy bitchy one who's protecting her friends? Why is that always a thing? Well, it's such a stereotype, and it happens all the time because that's what that girl is doing to compete. And then why is one girl hypersexual and another girl is hyper pure and, oh, I don't do that kind of stuff. They're just competing. They're all competing in a mate pool and trying to reach that higher, genetic option through different strategies. If a girl, this is why usually a girl who's like a 7, we'll say a 7 out of 10, though they tend to be really slutty because they know they're not a 10. So they figure, well, I can have sex more faster, and that's going to get me the guys that would otherwise be interested in that 10. And so like you start noticing this shit just working bars. You know what I mean? Like I'm in college, going to school for psychology, went to grad school too, before I joined the military. But yeah, it's my interest in human behavior. You start to observe this stuff, and then you start to learn how to use that in game that in the dating market. So I had a lot of options, and then
Shut up and take my money.
And then I met my, the person I ended up marrying when I was like 23 years old, and way too young, to settle into something like that.
23.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know. I thought it was like 27. Oh wow, that is super young.
Yeah, well, we got married a couple years later, but you know what I mean? So like in total time, I was with her for like about a decade, a little over a decade. But she was great as a human. She's a great human being. I vetted properly there. We still get along, really well as co-parents. Just not, there were a lot of things about her that would have, and I won't say much about her because I don't want to embarrass her or whatever. Not that anyone would connect her to me necessarily, but because we kind of watch our social media like that. But either way, I'm not going to say too much about like her personally, but we'll just say there were some things there that made us not very compatible. It did turn into like a sexless marriage, which was me leaving a lot on deployments too. And so I joined the military later in life. I couldn't join when I was 18. I always thought it was going to be like, everyone looks at, comic book and Hollywood shit. So I'm like, either I want to be Rambo and the Punisher all at the same time. You know what I mean? Maybe without my family getting killed, but whatever. That was like, I'm going to be that. Right. And then I couldn't join the military.
These are reasonable goals as a young man.
Yeah, very reasonable. I put money off the table because I figured, well, I'm never going to really be a billionaire, which is wrong. I didn't have anyone coaching me about finances and about money and talking to me about those things. And so that's something that I mean, as a lesson that I do for my son and that people need to do for their kids. And in coaching, I talk about that with these guys. It's not just about girls, because nobody talked to me about that. It was a very deterministic view of wealth. Like you're either born with it, you have it, or you don't. And if you don't, you can do okay. You can be middle class at best, but you're never going to do well, which is total bullshit. But that was the limiting mindset I had in my 20s. And so I was looking more for security rather than wealth. But I also wanted to do something with fighting somehow. I didn't, and that involved something real though. I didn't want to just compete for a trophy or a belt. I wanted to like stop evil in the world. Like it's kind of like a superhero complex. It's immature in a way, right? But of course, that was when I was young.
Admirable. It's admirable. I remember I launched myself into Japan as a rite of passage because I didn't feel man enough,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, we all do things.
Talk about modern day kamikaze. No, we all, when we're younger guys, we do these wild things. I don't regret shit, man. I don't regret it. Shit. I don't regret anything.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't like, so as soon as like 9/11 happened, and I was already training like a couple of guys who were in the military martial arts stuff. They were going on their first deployment like 2004-ish. And we had no idea, like at that time, what war is going to be like over there. You know what I mean? 2003, 2004, wasn't a lot of knowledge back then for the guys who were going on those first rotations. It's like, what the fuck are we going to deal with? Are we going to deal with a chemical attack? Am I going to have to? I was teaching guys knife fighting because it's like, what if I have to knife fight? It's stupid. They're not going to have to knife fight. But like, we didn't know. They didn't know shit. Like, what if I have to? Just in case. You know what I mean? Like
the just in case is good enough. The just in case is good enough.
Wow. So it's very wild times, the way we thought of shit. And then these guys got back from
the just in case turns into like, I wish a motherfucker would.
Well, seriously. And I was into shooting too. I got into shooting later in life too. So I always felt like I missed out. And then a friend of mine was like, hey, he had gotten back from his deployments. He had gone to recruiting because he blew his shoulder out. So he couldn't, serve on the teams and stuff anymore. And he was like, hey, man, I can get you in. I got a doctor who will waive psoriasis. It might take some time, but if you would like, I could get you in. And so I went through that process. And in my late 20s, I got in the military and then went and tried out for something called LRS, which is long range reconnaissance surveillance. They're like 6-man Ranger teams. It doesn't exist anymore. It was a very interesting unit. And so it was, ended up deploying a few times. Do you know what I mean? Between 07 and 09, was in Iraq and Afghanistan and all that. So so just ended up deploying a few times and got to get a feel for what that was like, and was awesome. Fucking loved it. You know what I mean? But I was leaving a wife because the marriage sucked. And so I'd be like, well, all right, I guess I'm going on another training, or I guess I'm going on another deployment. Like, get me the fuck out of here.
You're kind of trapped in a relationship. Like when you don't want to confront her when she's doing some shit. So you're like, oh, I'm just going to go work on this. Or I'm going to go work on my car, or, get lost.
Yeah, kind of. Well, it was that although I had no problems confronting her on things, but when it came to the sex and the lack of sexual connection, I didn't know how to navigate that. I was into sex so much, and before I got married, I was having lots of sex. And then when I got married, I was having lots of sex, and then all of a sudden that dropped off over, and I couldn't figure out why. Now I know exactly why. And I know exactly what you need to do to prevent that. This is why a lot of guys come to me with that problem, and they usually get their wives. They either get their wives back, or they're so far gone that they know that they can't, and they move to a divorce, but they have the reassurance that it's dead. But most of the time, they get the wives back. I got mine back in the bedroom before I broke. I was actually the one to break it off at the end of it. But I had gotten her back into a very sex positive relationship where basically I run any of my relationships what we would consider the porn term would be free use, but I don't know how those porns work, so I really don't watch porn like that. But basically you don't say no, right? So if my girlfriend's horny and she wants sex, we're doing it. Like there is no, I'm not tired or headache or nothing. Something's happening, right? And vice versa is true. There is no. Doesn't matter how you feel. Your job in a relationship is to, please and satisfy your partner, the person you're with sexually. And that's the values I have in my relationship. So there is no. There can be like
work, soldier.
My buddy went on a second deployment in Afghanistan. Yeah, go ahead and read it.
Oh, so no, this is it's Chris. He's my buddy in Montana. And he said my buddy second deployment in Afghanistan because a girl broke his heart and he wanted to die. So the amount
happens.
Yeah, it's real out there. This is right. This is live right now, folks. So we're trying to shine light on it so men can have awareness and know there are answers out there.
Oh yeah. It's good to hear just I think perspectives rather than lessons, maybe, if that makes sense. But lessons through perspectives, if you will. But so on the deployment thing, so a very common theme or archetype for military guys, police guys too, a lot of cops, is they have a sort of this self-sacrificing ideology. They believe that they have to go fight for the tribe. It's ingrained. It's something genetic about us that says I got to go put myself in danger to prevent danger from happening to, my tribe. Right. And so these are the guys who go on deployments. These are the guys who join not for college money, but to go to war, which is what I did. And they, whatever level they're at, whether they're just infantry dudes or, or whether there's some sort of special forces, special operations or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's just that mindset of wanting to fight and wanting to put yourself there. And a lot of police think that way. Not all of them, but a lot of them think I'm putting myself in harm's way. So they become very confused when a girl discards them. It's this, there's a mistake that alphas don't get discarded. That's not true. because
Yeah.
alphas tend to have high vasopressin response. So the reason what makes an alpha is a higher testosterone level, right? So having high testosterone and being responsive to competitive situations, and then having an ideology or a genetic drive to want to protect or put yourselves in harm's way, and that competitiveness, that's a high testosterone man. Well, what allows men to pair bond with women is not just oxytocin, but vasopressin. Vasopressin is more hyper responsive with higher testosterone, you see. So it's the testosterone levels that create the response system for vasopressin, which can make a guy highly protective. You know what I mean? Highly protective, highly territorial. That's the German Shepherd. You know what I mean? He's going to fucking bite someone's nuts off if they fucking cross into his yard. That kind of a person. And then they're possessive over their women. They're possessive. And so then when that woman leaves him because he didn't have the game skills to manage the relationship, or he picked a shitty woman, he's highly confused. And his first response is, oh, I don't have any mate value, I guess. I better just throw myself in harm's way in hopes that, I better put myself in a position to die for my tribe. And that's very common. And if a guy doesn't have that opportunity because he's done his deployments, he tends to turn to drugs or we call it self-selecting, which is taking yourself out of the gene pool, which is why that incidences of guys taking their lives in the military are so high, because it's something that's ingrained. So don't think like, only weak betas get broken up with. That's not true. There's a lot of reasons women cheat. One of it's just proximity. The alpha guy that isn't there, and she feels like she needs somebody there, so she'll go with a beta guy. That's a mate strategy. Women have a dual mating strategy. Sometimes they're committed to the beta, which is what we normally see in like those marriages where she commits to a guy that she's not that excited about, and then she has an alpha either in her head or in her past, or perhaps the personal trainer at the gym or the tennis coach, you know what I mean? And then she cheats, whatever. We see that all the time. But we also see where a girl does go with the alpha guy, but then the alpha guy is not there. He's absent. He has to go make fucking money. He has to go travel overseas on business, or he has to go on a deployment, and then a couple of months not having that guy's proximity and her not using her human brain, she falls to her instinct. She finds a weaker guy that is interested in her feelings and fills those holes that the alpha guy is not, because he's a provider and a protector. You know what I mean? And so these are just things we run into, the binary extremes that you find on the internet to try to, give you a simple explanation for what women do is just not going to fucking work. You guys are going to find yourselves in trouble if you listen to all that. But
let me read this super chat real quick. Thank you, Chotsky. He sent on the link. He said, MLD and Paul are the best in the game, guys. They established a bedrock foundation of those who are in pursuit of personal excellence. Subscribe to MLD's Telegram group, 9 p.m. Friday. The guide is dropping. And on June 10th, no, it's July 10th, tune in to Fresh and Fit for this episode. This guy runs a marketing agency. So beautiful super chat. Thank you so much, buddy.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Appreciate the love. If you guys want to send super chats, go ahead. We'll read them on the screen. So now you ended the relationship, and then now this is like the birth of the beast, or like what like how old are you at this point? 33?
So now we're getting unleashed. So what happened in the relationship, and this is, I'll just hope that she doesn't listen to this. She doesn't listen to my shit for reasons, but either like my girlfriend, any other women in my life, just don't fucking listen to this. Anyway, all right. So
I'll deny it to her face, bro.
Right. What? I didn't say that. No, I don't care. I'm very honest, very truthful. They don't always want to hear the truth, but they're gonna get it. You know what I mean? If they ask the right questions, they'll always get the truth from me.
Yeah.
Because I don't care. Like I'm gonna tell the truth, even if it doesn't make me look good or whatever. And so at any rate, my wife at the time shit tested me in the relationship when I finally got back from a series of deployments, couldn't kick this can down the road anymore. I finally started confronting her on the sex thing. I started to be like, what in the fuck is going on? Like, I don't understand. I'm my friends are coming back from deployment and their whores that they're not married to, the bartender that they used to bang or their fucking their little girlfriends are jumping on their fucking dicks. You don't want to have anything to do with me. You don't even fucking take care of yourself. Like, what in the hell is happening? And I'm just confronted her on like, what the fuck? And then that turned into an argument. And then that turned into her basically saying, well, listen, you just are gone so much. I just don't feel it. And if you need to get something else, you need to get it from somewhere else, then go right ahead. So she said that. And then the next day I had a 23-year-old in a BDSM dom sub relationship. Like, it was like 24 hours. I was upset. At first I was upset. And I remember when
I wish somebody would. Like, you're like, I wish my wife would tell me I could go bang some young 23-year-old. You were ready.
She meant it. I'm sure she meant it as a shit test. I'm sure it wasn't real. But I know. It's so bad though. Anyway, I finally had enough. And I said, fuck this, And at the time I had gotten off active duty and I was, trying to build a business. I had an adopted son now that was a couple years old. And I'm like, I'm now domesticating my life. Well, I'm not domesticating my life into a sex-free life. So we're either figuring this out. And when I approached her, I wasn't like, give me sex. I'm a weird incel. You know what I mean? It was never like that. It was just like, what's going on? Like, it was like questions. Like, I don't understand why you're like this. Like, why you're not attracted to me? Like, I was, at Fort Bragg and different places, having to leave places early so I wouldn't accidentally cheat. You know what I mean? Because girls were very interested in me. And then I'm like, fuck, dude. And I got this woman at home that won't sleep with me. I couldn't understand it for the life of me. Now I do understand it a lot now, but I didn't understand it back then. I was asking questions, and instead of having a productive conversation, she just shut it all down and said, go sleep with other people as a way of dismissing me. Well, again, that didn't work in her favor. I mean, I guess if we want a revenge story, that's it. But I don't feel like I didn't do it out of revenge. I did it because I'm like, I'm not living my life.
You got to get some sex, man. You got to get some sex in this life.
Living my life. I'm not living a sexless life. Like, that's crazy. Why would I do that? And so life's too short. It's too short to be an incel. Guys, everybody listening, it's too fucking short. If you're not solving this problem, start solving it, because life is much better when you make these connections with others and you're having a good sex life, period. And so I had this fucking hot ass girl who was working in this real estate office where I was getting ready to get licensed and start in that business. She had asked me out. She had asked me out a couple of times, and I shut it down because I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm not going to like cheat. And then I got the green light. And so the next day I was like, I was just so annoyed. And I just reached that point and I was like, that's it. Like, it was like 2 p.m. and I'm just like, all right, get your purse. Come on, let's go. She's like, what? I'm like, we're getting the fuck out of here. We're going to go get some lunch, maybe a drink. We have an afternoon alcohol. We're going to fucking have a conversation, you and I. Let's do it. And that was my game. She was like, okay. Let me just tell. She was working for another guy, like another older agent who hired her because she was hot. That was really it, right? And so she's like, well, let me tell him I have to leave real quick. I'm like, yeah, good. And so then we left. I remember sitting in front of her and I was like, so I was so like confused, like there's no game here. It was just like, I'm just like going to be brutally honest, which, by the way, brutal honesty is good game. Come to find out later. And I train a lot of guys to do that. They don't have the balls or the courage to just be brutally honest. They're afraid of what a girl's going to think or what someone's going to think. Anyway, I was past that point in my life. I'd almost died several times at this point at war. Like, I just didn't give a shit anymore. Right. So I'm sitting in front of her. I'm like, well, this is a very unconventional situation that you and I are in. And she's like, oh, what? Why is that? And went, because you're attracted to me and I'm attracted to you. But the problem is I'm married. She goes, oh. I go, but maybe it's not that big of a problem because seems to be okay with me fucking other people. So I guess if you're okay with that, she's okay with that, then everything's good. She's like, so she goes,
Yeah, balls of steel, buddy. You know how many guys would never do that?
I know. But this is like, got to teach him to do this. Cause then she looks at me, and of course, being a, kind of a retarded 23-year-old, she just looks at me and she's like, "Oh, that's really hot." I went, "Well, then that's a good answer." And then we just kept talking. And then that was like that night, she got a hotel room. She came over after working because she worked a bar a couple nights a week. She came right over and fucking like took out years of lousy sex. Took out a decade. I don't know, maybe it wasn't a decade, but took out years of lousy sex out on her. And she was like, holy shit, just what happened to my life, And so and so at the time, the whole 50 Shades of Grey was getting popular. They're coming out with that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So of course every girl's like, "Oh, I want this situation," right? I'm like, "Good, you're in that situation, like that's it. You do what I say. Bring me coffee. You're gonna suck my dick, and now you're gonna leave." Like it was just like it was just very. She loved it. It was a very dominant. I would tell her what to do. We did all kinds of shit all around the town, it was this crazy sex all over the place. Now she was a very toxic person. As it turns out, she had a narcissistic personality disorder, if I want to put a diagnosis to it. And so that didn't necessarily end well, but it sure started good, as those things tend to go. And a lot of lessons were learned there.
Let me ask you this. So before you banged her, right? Like leading up to this, were you reading like, pickup books or anything like that? Or you like nothing?
Fuck no. I thought those guys were gay as fuck.
Oh,
now,
wow.
I know in hindsight, though, there's a lot of good shit there. I didn't know at the time. I remember when Mystery had I respect Mysteries a lot. He's got good shit. He's good at what he does. His book is great. I recommend people buy it. It's just good fundamentals of game, of pickup stuff. But at the time, he was this goofy weirdo who was a failed magician on a show on MTV who wore eye makeup. I'm like, who's this queer? I'm not from LA. I'm not in the scene. I'm this Midwestern guy, right? Who's a blue collar, essentially military guy. I'm like, well, that dude's gay as fuck. Like, let's meet girls a different way, because I don't know what this clown is doing. Of course, he, again, like, that was wrong of me. That was just the way I looked at it back then. I was not. Now what I did do a research on, though, was I did do a lot of stuff on psychology because I was in academia, right? So I went to University of Detroit Mercy for grad school. I did not complete the doctorate, but I have master's, and I could work as a therapist as a licensed therapist underneath a doctored therapist or psychiatrist in the state of Michigan. So, I mean, I'm technically have those credentials. I left for deployment before finishing a doctorate, never went back to it. But so I have an academic background. I was interested in evolutionary. Bachelor's and master's, yeah.
Okay.
Master's also.
What was the master's in?
Clinical psychology.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's why you're way more technical than I am.
Yeah, I always thought that way. This is always the way I thought, and I was really more interested in learn. Like I'm kind of a nerd too. Like I read studies. Like I'm a nerd about it, not just the abstracts. Like I actually get into stuff and whatever. And I'm fascinated about when it comes to human behavior. I'm fascinated, especially this aspect of mating and dating and all that, because I didn't understand it growing up, and I always felt like this is such a big part of people's lives. And who you choose to pair up with, whether it's short or long term, can greatly impact the quality of your life. And not having somebody to pair up with at all can greatly impact your psychology as a man. And so to not look at this in a better way, because it was so, the stuff that was out there, and even today, the stuff that's out there lacks so much in terms of there's so much we need to know about, but we're not even researching. For example, just like, not to get down this road, but like the effects on body count and someone's pair bonding ability and neurochemical reactions in long-term relationship. There is nothing on that. So we're left to conjecture of what a girl with 50 bodies, what that's done to her limbic system for trying to be happy and married long term. We're left with like guesswork. We can assume it's not good, but do we know, is she irreparable? Is there a way to repair her? How could we if we could? And
Mhm.
it's not being looked at because academia is more feminist driven because there's politics in academia, and they don't want to look at anything that would make a woman look bad. And so they just want to sit back and go, oh, notches
Mhm.
are fine, everybody. Or they want to say it's bad for men and women alike, but they don't want to look at how it is bad for men.
Do
In
you
other
think
words,
do you think they can continue to deceive the public in the age of AI that's coming?
I think that, yeah, I do, because what they're going to do is they're going to use AI to deceive people, and you're already seeing that now. So like, it's people are going to get more like you can look in government, for example. People are wise to shit. A lot of conservatives are like, yeah, the FBI is full of shit, and this Epstein list is being covered up by the guys I voted for. So now I'm upset. That's, oh, Israel is a real problem, and now I'm upset. And these things are happening because of the internet, because of AI, because of information being at our fingertips. They can't hide those things, but now they're going to use the same things that we're using to uncover things is going to be used to hide shit again, and even to a higher degree, to much more of a degree. You can
Mhm.
already see it with platforms like ChatGPT, which will give you wrong answers. You know what I mean? To
Yeah,
cover things
yeah.
up, and
What you
they
train the
sell it.
AI on.
Yep, and they will sell those answers. That's another thing about AI, is that they're selling it. They make it sound like a good idea, or like this is the way, or this is right. They're not just giving you information, they're trying to convince you that their answer is correct, and they appeal to your ego, like, oh, that's such a great question. Here's why. Let me push back on, you say something that that doesn't fit their narrative. Well, let me push back on that a little bit. It's really smart that you asked this. And then they give you some answer, and it's like the wrong answer, but like you
Yeah.
feel fluffed up, you feel like smarter, and then they'll provide limited information to support the idea. And then you challenge it and you find out, like so many times with AI, I'll be like, well, that's not correct because of this. And they'll go, oh, yep, my bad. That's a good catch, and it'll just be like, and I'll be like, bitch, you just tried to fucking psyop me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like, you
Yeah.
got to be careful with the tools we have, because they are
Yeah.
being
Good
programmed
work,
or
soldier.
used.
And I would
It's yeah.
I
Go ahead.
want to add to that too. I would say also, like, listen, that's another reason why game is so good, because you're gonna know when someone's gonna try and dupe you because you're a
Yes.
social The reason you are bad with women is because your levels of social intelligence are not as developed as you think they are. Because
Yep.
if they were, you would have some girls somewhere. Like, there are girls in America. You could still pull chicks, even in the hillbilly ass area that I'm in. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are chicks
100%.
here,
I would
So
do that all the time in my lifetime. I've been, so in that, but anyway, keep going. Sorry. But
no,
yeah.
you're good. You're good. I'm just rambling too because I'm passionate about it. But I like, one of the most common things that happens with the clients that I work with is they really get their game under wraps. And my definition, do you have game or not, is can you catch a woman in the wild and domesticate her? If you can't do
Yeah.
that, sorry, not ready to sit at the big boys tables yet. Everything you're doing is a delusion. You're deluding yourself. You're deluding the girls that you're involved with. Um, yeah, maybe some of you will get lucky, maybe 1%, but you're not that guy, bro. Because if you're not getting pussy, you're not that guy. You have to go through the gauntlet and you got to learn this shit. Otherwise, dude, like, this is why older guys get finessed too. You see these boomers like, I'm tired of American women. They go to, like, some place overseas and get swindled. You see it happen all the time,
Oh, sure.
It
For
it
sure.
this is a debt you must pay, and you'll pay it one way or the other. Because
Yep.
how many guys, another thing is it too, like, when I made the decision that I just wanted to learn this stuff and be good with women and just truly understand women, right?
Mhm.
I was like 25, 26. I remember I just made the decision, and I remember it like alienated a lot of friends. And I
Yeah.
fast forward now, coming back to this area where I grew up and seeing like the aftermath of these guys' lives. Like,
Mhm.
few and far between have amounted to anything that could look like a relationship success. And so, I mean, that's just a reflection. I'm not saying get out there, you have to be a player, but I'm just saying, like, if you don't learn this stuff, a lot of you guys are going to end up alone. Like, the data is screaming in your face too. So these lessons are fucking, I mean, these episodes are phenomenal. This is basically turned to like a personal pickup diary,
It kind of
online.
is.
You know?
There's so much value here, and a lot of
Yeah.
guys just don't come across it, which is too bad because of the way algorithms are. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's attention spans too. Like, we're getting in depth, which means it's not a flashy split, cut to scene, cut to this, highly edited, short style intro, like all that bullshit. And we're not going to do that bullshit either. That's another thing. Like, it's not, we can do it. We both do shorts, and we use those marketing tactics to bring people to the channel, but we're not going to do that for this show. You know what I mean? If you don't have the attention span to sit through a normal conversation and learn from it, then go fuck yourself. That's the way I look at it. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna do well then. You need to fucking do some things to work on your ability to pay attention and the ability to have normal conversations.
I meet so many guys in a rush, and then they don't want to do anything about it. They're like in a rush to be told that they're fucked. I'm like, all right, that's what you want to talk about.
Yeah, like, what are we optimizing? How fucked up you are and how you're not going to fix it? Like, what are we optimizing here? And so and so if you want to fix something, you're going to pay attention, you're going to learn. Part of the skill is learning to pay attention to conversations and pull out value from those conversations. If you can't do that, you're not going to do well on a date when you're sitting in front of a girl trying to have a conversation with her. You know what I mean? What are you going to tell her? Get cut to the chase. Send me a meme. Let's look at her phone. As soon as you sit down,
so are you trying to fuck or not?
Yeah. Hey, you want to fuck or no? Anyway, I mean, but so, and so,
what time to be
back, so back to it. After, I'd learned some lessons from that narcissist. There's a period of time where I had the wife at the time back, and also I found out that this whole dom sub thing really works well. So now I had her into that, and she was into it, right? But this is the thing that women, and the few women that do listen to us, need to understand about men. We have something called marriage goggles, all right? That's the slang term for it, but it's actually a researched thing. This vasopressin I talk about skews the way that we see a woman. So when we first start dating a woman, and let's say a woman meets a guy in her 20s, and she's at the peak of her fertility and hotness, and that guy decides to commit to her and then marry her. Well, that guy has vasopressin that has been foundationally, firing at a foundational level since she was the pretty version of herself. So now as she ages and age-related decline happens, that guy still sees her as his hot wife. The rest of the world may not see her like they saw her would have seen her at 20, at 25 or whatever, but this guy still gets attracted to her. He still gets a hard on for her. Like, it's still there. The worst thing a woman can do is slap those marriage goggles off a guy by neglecting him sexually, by being a fucking bitch, by not doing her part to manage the relationship, by letting herself go physically so she no longer resembles the human being he first got with, like to such a high level that the marriage goggles don't work anymore. I mean, that's the worst thing a woman can do, because once those goggles are slapped off, bam, marriage goggles slapped off, vasopressin not firing the same way. Oh shit. Now I see her as a 40-year-old negative, kind of bitchy, kind of miserable woman that I'm not attracted to. Whoa, what the fuck happened? It's like your reality kicks in. And I'm not saying those bad things about my ex or anything, but there was compatibility questions that I had in my early 20s when I was with her. I overlooked those. That's a game mistake I made, and ended up getting married to her out of a sense of duty. But that sense of duty created this high vasopressin where I wanted to make sure she was sort of taken care of. And to her, she was very hot. also back when we were in our 20s. And so I saw her as that. She kind of she stopped taking care of herself. She didn't get like grossly obese or anything when I was with her, but she just wasn't taking care of herself. Do you know what I mean? And wasn't interested in her appearance anymore and wasn't interested in sex anymore. And there's a number of reasons for that having to do with her personal psychology and makeup. I'll leave out of this conversation just for her sake. But once that dropped off, once I got, that rejection from her so many times, and in my frame and game was not the best when it came to relationships back then either. It is much more improved now. But once those goggles came off, I no longer had the vasopressin for her, no longer had the illusion for her. I was done. I like couldn't continue. Like even though she was completely, submissive to me, and we had this high sex life where we were having sex all the time, and she was enjoying it, and she wanted to be, and that's a real tragedy. I ended up ending the relationship, and I feel bad about that sometimes, because she's not a bad person, but she just didn't have the relationship skills. She didn't manage it properly. Same thing with you guys out there. Nobody taught her either. She's doing the shit that her mom did. She's doing the shit that, that she saw growing up without any thought process. I didn't have the frame to change it at the time, which I do now, but I didn't back then. And once those goggles came off, they were broken. I couldn't put them back on again. I couldn't just be with her and be happy again anymore. And in all the reasons we were mismatched, like the way that she envisioned wanting to do her life and the way that I wanted to do my life were just so different that I had to end it. And so that's what happened. And it's a kind of a tragic story, but it's a lot of lessons though that I bring to now guys too. So we're not just bringing, you and I aren't just bringing the research and the academic stuff. We are, but we're also bringing personal experience and the personal experience of many, many clients now, probably clearly over 1,000 clients now at this point in the last, 8 to 10 years we've been doing this. You know what I mean? So like, so that was a lesson learned. And then once I became single, I didn't have the inner game coping skills that I have now. So I was just a fucking savage, dude. I was just ripping through the sexual marketplace, not thinking about tomorrow after when it finally separated from the marriage and was done with the narcissist too. Right. And I was free and single. I didn't have the right inner game because I was just like, I was actually broken up from that narcissist. I really feel better in a relationship situation that that's really, I feel like I would rather have a more of an in-depth an in-depth bond with somebody rather than just like having, I don't want to sleep with people I don't care about. Does that make sense? And so, so it's just even when, and I went through a savage period where I kind of lost myself for a bit. That's when those notches went really high.
That's one thing that is like, I think a lot of guys don't realize. Once you start getting good with women, if your inner game is not dialed in, you'll start using a lot of sex with women to cope. And that's like, that always ends bad.
and right. And so I had this PTSD I was ignoring rather than handling. I mean, that was during that time I got in a fucking bar altercation and almost ended up with a list of criminal charges. I don't have any, by the way. It's all good. I have no criminal record, but I had a close call, almost lost my security clearance, so losing your clearance is not good. Even though I'm just training National Guard guys now, I can still go back and operate at the same level or on the teams or in an advisory group or something like that, utilizing, my clearance and my previous experience. Almost lost that just from a fucking bar fight because I was not living like a smart person. I was living like just a very savage person that was, didn't really care about my future. You know what I mean? I wasn't grounded. I was living like I didn't have the mission that I needed to have, that kept me focused on deployments. So I had this sort of deployment wartime savagery with no mission. And then that turned into fucking bitches and juggling different hoes and having threesomes everywhere and all kinds of shit. And just like, it just pure savagery. And
I
and
believe
at
it.
the time, I was not a guy who lied to women, though. I was brutally honest. So like a girl would be like, well, what are we going to be in a relationship? I'd be like, fuck no, I'd never be in a relationship with you. You know what I mean? I'd say that. I go, I mean, I like you, but not, but you're a fucking lunatic. Absolutely not. But we are going to have sex though. And she would go, okay, or whatever. And then that would be it. You know what I mean? Like I never had to like deceive a girl to get her to sleep with me. I was always brutally honest. And I did care about people in general. I didn't want to hurt people. But you know, one thing that I'm not happy about was that so a lot of times women, when they're out, this is a lesson, when women are in relationships and marriages and they're no longer fucking or caring about the guy that they're with, they don't see him as the best choice. They oftentimes will go out and troll for dick. They'll do it in circumstances like conferences. Business conferences are super common. You know what I mean? Real estate was huge with that. We'd have a real estate conference or something like that, right? And the girl, women would separate from their husbands, go to some other place where there's alcohol and there's, sessions for learning how to sell better, learning this about this thing or that thing involving real estate. And then there was parties and drinking, and all these girls are trolling for dick, and they want strange dick because their husband doesn't know. Same thing in military environments in areas that I don't work in, because the areas I work in, it's all men, but the areas I don't work, girls are doing the same thing. It's like when they can have a break from, their at home life, a lot of times they're open to cheating. Not every girl, but many of them. And I would say a lot of them who are not happy in their relationships, it's exactly what they'll do. And so I didn't care. I was the guy they would cheat with, because at first I never targeted them, but they would always lie. You know what I mean? They would never tell you they had a boyfriend that was serious or a fiance.
Mm-hmm.
I had one girl who slept with me and she was supposed to get married in 2 weeks. She never told me that until afterwards. I eat shit like that all over the place. I would have girls, and I would have girls. I'd have a guy. This is embarrassing. This is fucked up. All right, so I'd have a guy I'd see on the phone, and so I was so mentally fucked up and but I was savage fucked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like fucking her for mine. I'd be like, answer the phone. I'd make her answer it while I was having sex with her, just to be like, fuck everybody, fuck this guy too, right? I don't know what came over me to do that. I was not a good person. So don't listen, guys who look at me as a role model, listen, don't be like me. Just learn lessons, because I went through periods of not being a good person. That was one of those periods. That 6 months was really challenging, because again, I had this, and it is PTSD level symptoms. You're just you're self-destructive. Right. You know what I mean? And you don't care if you're destroying other people's lives in that sense, even though I didn't try to overtly hurt people, but these girls were willing to hurt the guys they were with. They didn't care. And my thought process was like, well, if it's not me, it's going to be some other guy that's railing them from behind and saying, answer that fucking phone. You know what I mean? And so if it's not me, it's somebody else. That was the argument. Now, I woke up from that pretty quickly and decided, you know what? I don't want that evil. That's evil. And I do believe in good and evil. I am a theist, even though I'm very science-based. I am a theist. And I think that that's an evil thing. And I think that I don't want to invite evil into my life anymore. And so I stopped doing that. I don't want to be the person a girl is cheating with because she tells some story about how her guy she's with is so terrible and she has to cheat for some reason. It's all bullshit, and they all lie. And you get a sense of the lies that women will tell when you're on the other side of it, when you're the alpha guy, contextually, right, who's giving them the sex they want. You see all the lies that they tell everybody else, their friends, their family, and you see all the bullshit for what it is, because they'll tell you the truth, because you have no future with them. You let them know right away with your behavior or words. There's no future here. I'm just here to fuck your brains out.
They will.
They're like,
they'll live a lie for years. They will live a lie for years and not say a peep.
Many of these women will never tell their husbands or guys that part of them. Now, this is why frame is so important in a relationship. You don't want a relationship where you have these secrets from each other. You don't want to invest your future into a woman who's keeping secrets from you about the savage parts of herself. And you don't want to necessarily feel like you have to keep these secrets from her either. My girlfriend knows I'm a fucking savage if I have to be. She absolutely knows it. She also knows that the kind version of me too. And she knows the truth about me. And I don't want her to not know the truth about me because I don't want her to find out how I really am 5-10 years from later and have her fantasy blown apart and then go through a crisis. I want a girl as quickly as possible to know who she's dealing with. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I'm a guy with by conventional standards, a lot of red flags with me, a lot of risk for a girl to get with me because I might not commit to her. I might not do what she wants. I'm probably not going to fall in line with her program, and I'm probably going to expect her to fall in line with mine. Now, on the other hand, I also provide a lot. The girls won the lottery. Like my girlfriend's won the lottery. So far today, she's had breakfast made for her. We spent time on the beach. We've laid out on the beach in the middle of the day. She hasn't had to go to a job. She doesn't have to worry about paying for a fucking thing. She's gotten her orgasms. We've had a few laughs and good time. You know what I mean? If she wanted to go do something else today, she could have done it. She almost went to her mom's to go hang out for a little bit today, which she could have done. Or she can hang out here. I don't know what else to say. Like what else can a girl want? You know what I mean? So like she stepped into a very good situation. I do a lot, in my relationships. I don't believe in not doing things for your girl. I believe in having frame. And when you do things for your girl, she sees this as this guy that is a great guy who could be doing something else, doing things for her. You know what I mean? It's not this thing where she takes it for granted and expects you to do more, or she's not going to give you a blowjob and all the crap that goes on in marriages, Right. And so when you do a lot for your woman, now you have a lot to remove. All right. So think about that in terms of relationship game. Show up being 100%, but expect the same from her. If she's not being 100%, now you can remove things. And she feels when all of a sudden these things that are like her normal day-to-day good feelings she's having, you're absent from that equation. It's like, it's like all of a sudden she feels that. And now she wants to fix it, whatever it is, so we can go back to a baseline. That's application of dread in a positive way, right? So there's the negative dread where you make a girl think that you're going to leave her or something, which I don't recommend most of the time, except for in certain very rare situations when a girl is really not treating you the right way. But most of the time, like, there's no question. Am I going to take my girl shopping? Is she going to get random flowers sometime? Is she going to get meals cooked for her, pretty frequently? Because I actually enjoy cooking. So I cooked for you when you came over. So it's something I enjoy doing. So now she gets that too. She's getting all the shit paid for her. She's getting like everything. She knows she's getting everything. But the second that I'm getting not the respect or not the honor that she should be, in the gratitude, when she's not showing up like that, like, now there's things to remove. And now there's things where like, oh, okay, I'm missing these things that were going on because I've been a real bitch the last few days. And then it's, hey, I'm sorry, I was a bitch this morning. Now, of course, sometimes when she's being a bitch, like I do what my grandfather does, which is, it's just, punch it. No, definitely not. No, he was never that way. No, just like, hey, you know what? She's a girl. She's going through a moment. It's fine. So like those moments are fine. Well, we're talking about any kind of, I don't get the perpetual disrespect and some of the things that a lot of you guys get. I just don't, that doesn't show up in my relationships because she would not have made it this far if she was the kind of person who would treat me like that.
Right.
But when there's been times of testing things or things not going the right way, when I'm doing a lot for her, now there's a lot that can be removed. And that creates dread. So that's just a little something for you guys' back pockets there to think about. A lot of guys on the internet are trying to flex and be like, I don't do shit for my girl and she does everything for me. Well, okay, but where's the fucking buy-in now, right? What those guys are all full of shit. They all lose their fucking girls. They lie about it on the internet. They're fucking full of shit.
Yep.
Reality is we the expectation is I'm setting a standard of we both put a lot of effort into our relationship, both of us. If she's not putting the effort in for a long period of time and she's being an asshole, well, you know what I mean? Now we're removing some things and now she feels that loss. You know what I mean? And so she doesn't get to do being an asshole for any length of time at all because she
Mm,
feels an immediate absence of the stability that she enjoys every single day. And
mm.
so that's how you keep that frame using dread as a tool. And that's pretty important. But anyways, I got off on
Yeah.
a tangent.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I want to read this. I want to read this super chat. Then I have a question for the final chapter here. Chosky, $5 super chat. Thanks so much. Pair bonding is key, which is often why you get the trial period with women. And then you vet them and see how they are past the love/lust phase. Yes, very wise words there. Um, so okay, so when was the moment that you started diving into like literature, led you to this side of the internet, and like when
Yeah,
became a
yeah.
find beast?
That's a really good question. So, and there's a bit to talk about there, but it's in a good way. So I've always been interested in human behavior and psychology. Mainly it was performance psychology. Um, and I'd gotten interested, particularly what got me to psychology was sex. So that first sex partner I had when I was 19 made me make some serious decisions in my life. Um, I'll back up. Some people have heard the story, some people haven't. So, like, remember, 19 years old, I'm having sex with a girl who's a year older than me and who is a turbo slut, right? She's had sex with everybody. Very knowledgeable about it, and she's sort of very happy to have found me as not having had sex before. And she's like, cool, we're gonna train you to be a sex champion, right? All right, cool. I got a little personal sex trainer here. But I knew she was toxic and I knew that she was unstable mentally and that she would create drama and problems in my life and that somehow this is going to break up and end horribly. And sure as shit, we were having so much sex and going out so much that I started, and I was working on top of it. I started to, fail my fucking classes. You know what I mean? I would not fail, but it's like my grades were slipping and I had scholarships to be there. I was normally a 4.0 student. That was starting to slip. And I knew that if I didn't show up and do a good showing for my exams, I was fucked. So I took, I took, I told her like, hey, I can't see you this week. I got to study for exams. And
Mhm.
she was begging to come over. No, just come over and fuck me real quick. Let me just suck your dick. Just whatever. That's how she perceived any sort of connection. Like her dread went through the roof because
Mm,
I told her no. And I was available multiple times a day for her sexually
mm,
until for a few months. And then now I had to tell her no for a week. And I would tell her, like, listen, no, because you're going to come over, you're going to suck my dick, and then you're going to hang out because I'm not going to kick you out afterwards necessarily. And then you're going to want me to fuck you. And of course, I'm going to fuck you. And then we're going to hang. Then you're going to sleep over. And then I'm going to turn around and I would have got nothing done because that's what's been happening for months. I
yeah.
can't do that. I'm going to fail and lose my scholarship. I need to fucking focus. Just give me a week. She wasn't having it. And so then she goes to some fucking drugged out party where two of my so-called friends were there, snipes them, and fucks like two of my friends at the same time. Talks shit about me. Oh, he just can't hang. He couldn't fuck me this week. I guess his dick doesn't work or whatever. You know what I mean? Being a fucking gangster or whatever. And so, fucks two of my friends. And of course, guys will fuck anything. So they're not thinking Paul's going to kill me or something. They're just
Yeah.
like, so the one guy disappears afterwards and was no longer a friend of ours. The other guy had been friends for a long time and he's like really uncomfortable. And he's like, dude, you're going to find out and you're going to fucking kill me. And I don't know what to do. Like he was really like upset. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you probably, you had sex with my girlfriend. He's like, I'm like, listen, I go, bro, I don't care. Everyone's had sex with her. She's not my girlfriend anymore. It doesn't matter. He's like, oh, fuck. I'm like, I mean, you're a dick and you betrayed me, but also I don't care that much. I wasn't in love with this girl, man. I'm like, she was basically a sex partner and I knew she was going to do some shit and she was going to be vindictive. It's totally fine. And so I was like cool about it and it was fine. But then I thought to myself after that incident, the prior to her, I had been crushing. Like my whole career with women was having a retarded crush on a girl who didn't want me like that, right? So like prior to her, I was like, man, if this was the girl that I was like crushing on, if I was in a relationship with her and then she cheated on me and talked shit about me on top of it, like as if I'm not sexually performing for her or whatever, I would fucking end it, dude. Like I'd want to end my life and I need fucking therapy. Like this would fuck me up so bad and I'm like, I never want to give a girl that power. I never want a girl to have that power over me because I can see now how fucked up some of these women can be. And if I pick the wrong one and I give her the wrong kind of power, she's going to destroy me from the inside and psychologically. So at that point, I made it a point to like, and I also really like sex. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to learn as much about sex as possible and make myself like to a point where if a girl leaves me or she does some savage shit, no matter what she says, I know sex wasn't the reason. You know what I mean? No matter what bullshit she comes up with, whether she wants to, whatever ways she wants to try to degrade me, or if she cheats on me, whatever, I know that sex and the quality of sex is not going to be the reason why. It'll be something else. And so because I just thought about how devastated I would have been if I had higher feelings for that girl, right? So I dove into
it's a powerful weapon.
It is. And so it is. And it can be used against men, definitely. And so I also didn't want to be controlled through sex by women. I wanted to enjoy sex with women, not be controlled by it. And so I dove into the tantric world, and there's a lot of bullshit in that world, but there's good stuff. I dove into the BDSM world, a lot of bullshit there, but there's some good stuff. The sex therapy, Kinsey Institute, that stuff, dove into that, but there's a lot of, you know what I mean? So you're read My Secret Garden, like when I was really young, read, God, who's the pimp that wrote all those books about pimping? Read that shit. Yeah. Read Iceberg when I was young, dude, you know, trying to fit, you know, learn about all this shit, you know, but understanding sex was really the focus. And so that brought me to psychology. It was like the way that the human beings think about mating and behavior is so fascinating that I just wanted to get into psychology. And so that kind of brought me there. And I had read a lot of stuff already when I was really young, but it was all about sex, how to control your orgasms, how to, you know, how to make a girl have multiple orgasms, like different anatomy stuff, psychology, but most of it's psychology. And that's another thing, because I'm going to be doing a sexual psychology course here soon. A lot of guys are really focused on the mechanics of sex, which is like, they want to know like the cheat code of what buttons to press on a clitoris to make things happen. Wrong approach. Most of it happens from right here in between their ears. It's and that's a whole nother topic we did a sex thing before, but we did a sex episode, so the guys can look back at that episode. But there's a lot of psychology involved in sex. What makes the quality of the experience for a woman is everything that happens prior to, you know, so the seduction that happens prior to is what gets her at a high emotional state or not. And then that high emotional state is what enhances the sexual experience. And then if you just know a little bit about what you're doing when you're actually inside of her, you know, and what to do and what not to do mainly, then you create this amazing experience for her. And then you start learning her nuances, because every girl is built a little different. And then you start figuring that stuff out. So that led to me later being, you know, separated, divorced, and single, and fucking a bunch of women. And essentially, I mean, it was almost an unpaid escort in a way. I just had women coming to me for sex, you know, and I was figuring out what I wanted to at that time. And then that caused me to be very curious and start diving into the literature, mostly evolutionary psychology now. That's when I discovered like David Buss and Evolution of Desire and a lot of these different things. And then that led to, no, so this whole thing I'm doing now as a civilian later with real estate business, I started getting involved in business groups. And one of them, we created a business group with it was myself and a couple of other business owners. And so we had these business owners, small, medium-sized business owners, and then myself, talking about, we would meet once a week. We'd talk about our problems and things we're trying to solve. A lot of that involved work-life balance and trying to balance our personal lives and stuff. And then that opened up dating and relationships, right? And so like most of these guys are not married. So we're talking about dating and relationships. Well, I happen to be the one who is savagely running through women and understood them better. So I was now telling them using a mixture of my experience and also experience too, dealing with men in the military and all their relationship problems, right? So up to this point, I dealt with a lot of guys' problems with women and helped them solve those problems. And I was learning whenever I came up with something, like whenever I'd hear a problem from a guy, I would go, why is it like that? And then I would go and search up literature. And I had to now you can chat GPT stuff, but back then you had to be a member of all of these, journals and stuff that would publish academic journals. And I would look stuff up and look for, is anyone done any research on why people do this? You have like, again, like different institutes and stuff that are designed just for, researching about sex, researching about relationship, Gottman Institute, for example, for the relationship stuff. So I'm like, well, let's look this stuff up. Let's figure it out. And so I was really piecing through that prior to YouTube. And then with these guys, like they were so fascinated with some of the answers I was giving, and then they would apply it and it would work, that the business group turned into a fucking Paul's game show where I'm telling them how to game stuff. And then a really good friend of mine who was in that group, he said to me, you know what, man, you need to do this. He's like, I don't know how you're going to do this. I know you were a psychologist. I know that you're not practicing as a psychologist, and I don't know if you need to get your doctorate, but he goes, I don't think you need to be a psychologist to do this. But he's like, this is your calling. He's like, I do what I do in my business because that's my calling. I'm the best at what I do. And that's why I'm successful, because even if I lack knowledge in the business side of things, being at least the person who's one of the best in the business, I'm able to survive and work through those problems. You're like, dude, when you wake up every day and you're doing something that you're passionate about and that you're happy about, like that's in that you're good at, like you're the fucking best at. He goes, bro, I don't know anybody who's better at this than you. And he goes, there's this guy I used to listen to, and it was Corey Wayne. This guy I used to listen to, and I thought he was pretty good. And then I heard he's, I'm sure he's good. He's okay, but he's not to your level, man. He's like, you have to do this. And I'm like, shit. I'm like, all right. And I took that very seriously. And that's when I started really looking at, well, how can I do this? And that brought me to searching stuff on the internet. And I wanted to open up a YouTube channel, and I wasn't sure about going in this direction, where I had Apex Mindset and I'm working on men's performance, men's positive masculine identity, and game. Like that's what I do, right? And it was almost like this limiting belief that if you are purely a dating coach, you're a loser. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, because then it's like, well, there's all these other things I do and have done. I feel like, and a lot of these dating coaches are fucking losers. It's like saying you're a life coach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
and what's funny about the coaching, I'm pretty sure you've seen it on your end too, but like after one thing that we didn't realize was going to happen, but after I teach a lot of guys to get their game under control, all of a sudden they make a lot of money, multiple six figures. Some of them go on a millionaire because they really learn how to have control in their life in a new way where they're not a slave to women. And I meet so many fucking guys that like are extremely high value. I'm like, dude, you don't know like where you rank in society. I'm like, you need to wake
guys
up, buddy.
get their shit together with women, they immediately start doing better professionally. It's like you want to
soldier.
you want to scale your money and do better and be more successful. Get your shit together with women and watch that happen. And I mean, it's amazing how that works out that way. And so that was, a direction I wanted to go in. I had gotten in my research, I came across Rollo's stuff. I came across, that dude who did the what's it called? The conventions.
Oh,
21 convention.
Anthony Johnson.
Yeah, that motherfucker, right? And so I came across those dudes. I had mixed feelings about a lot of what was being said, but and of course, seeing some of the pickup guys, I revisited that. I could see some of the wisdom from the stuff I didn't see before, but I could see now or at that time, like with what's his name? Fucking Owen Cook's business. What is it?
RSD.
Yeah, the RSD guys. Like, I'm like, okay, like some of their pickup stuff is good, like I can see I started being more positive minded about the space a little bit and seeing value that people were offering. And it was, but I also could see that really they're not complete a lot. And they're not supposed to be. Like a pickup artist isn't necessarily trying to be complete necessarily, but I saw like there's these holes when it came to not necessarily holes in them personally, but what was being offered in terms of frame and in terms of having this sort of deeper thing. And so that's when I did join too. Like I got to give him credit because it was in Rich Cooper's group, which I did. How I came across him was interesting. I was going to come up with a channel that was about entrepreneurship and then parlay that into dating as an entrepreneur. So that was like the niche I was going to talk, because I felt like I couldn't talk about game and dating directly. I had to like work around it somehow or wouldn't be respected. So I thought, well, I could do something on entrepreneurship, but I'm like, but I'm not this millionaire or billionaire or something where that makes sense, but I can interview those people. And then I could talk about dating and relationship struggles. Like this is kind of the brainstorm. And then I came across Jerry Seinfeld's comedians in cars drinking coffee. And I was like, you know what? I could do like an entrepreneurs in cars or something and maybe like get a cool car and talk about entrepreneurship and women. And so that was like the brainstorm. Then I did a search, entrepreneurs in cars. And then Rich Cooper came up. And I'm like, this faggot took my fucking idea somehow. You know what I mean? Who is this asshole with the beard? Right. But then I liked him. I was like, he's cool. Like, I don't know. I like his demeanor. He delivers good. And I joined his group for a while. So, there was that. Now, him and I don't really talk much anymore, and that's okay. But I mean, that got me into Rule Zero because he vouched for me on Rule Zero, where a lot of guys, I feel like guys in this space, they don't act like it. I think there's less of that going on now than there used to be. But I think they get protective when they see a guy who has something that might challenge their level. I think they start to go, I don't know if I want this guy next to me because maybe he looks more knowledgeable than me. Where that's not my mindset. That's not your mindset. I am excited when someone's done something they have a nuance that I don't have. Like, it's like, oh, cool. Let's talk about it, because I don't feel threatened. I know that I have the value that I have, but I think that there's a sense of guys in the red pill space of not they don't understand the value they have. And I think
they want to like, don't outshine the master. They're afraid to outshine the master, but like,
right. Exactly.
I don't know. Exactly.
Yeah. And so I ran into that like later, but in the beginning though, I was invited to Rule Zero because of Rich. And so, and him and I were good friends for a while, and so that's how that went. And that's what got me into the space. One thing I will say that's unique was that I was fascinated. This is going to go a little left turn here, but it's important nuance. In my research and development prior to me getting on YouTube, I was fascinated with cults and people who would get like, and I just was so like, I was like, how do people allow themselves like to end up in a place where all the bitches are fucking one dude who says he's Jesus or something, and all the guys are just getting cucked, and then like they do something crazy, right? Like whether it's a mass, self-selection or whatever. Like how is it that someone like Charles Manson can have this level of mind control over these other people? It's a very interesting question that the government in fact asked, which is why the MK Ultra program was very interested in what was happening with him and his little commune and cult. And so like it's like how does that work? And I was very fascinated by that. And I started looking into the things that these guys do, because my thought was like, I just don't understand like how that works, but and I want to understand it more. But then that turned into, as I learned more, it was like, what? People are designed to follow or to lead, and sometimes both. But, people have a design. By design, men or, we defer to an authority to follow that person, or we become the person. And then I thought, well, in a relationship, as the man, we are the person. Genetically, we're the person. That's the role that's been given to us as men in a relationship between men and women. Is we're in the role of leading. We're in the role of taking that leadership role, which means we have to have followers, whether it's our wife or girlfriend, or whether you have a harem of girls. They have to follow you, and they have to do it enthusiastically. If it's done through fear, coercion, or fear of loss, or transactional value, like, well, he buys me stuff or whatever, there's not the emotional buy-in.
Good work, soldier.
To really want to stick with that relationship and to feel good about it. You have to be able to have people feel good about it. Yeah. And so if they're going to do that, like, well, as it turns out, the skills and the things that cult leaders and cults would do to their followers, were tapping into parts of their brain that are by design natural for them to follow a leader. And so like, if you could do that in your relationship, but not with the toxic elements and not with the abusive elements, you probably are going to have a really good relationship where the person you're with is really happy. So it's an odd thing, because this terrible thing that I hope nobody ever gets involved with, which is being in a cult, being controlled, you know what I mean? Or being that person, that's not good, right? As it turns out though, some of these elements are all elements of a healthy relationship. If done without coercion, without violence, without manipulation or deception. And if it's done basically with consent, on free will, and with frame, it's the same stuff that makes a good relationship. That's why people fall for cults, right? They wouldn't, because that was my thing. They're not going to fall for this shit unless it taps into parts of their brain that would ordinarily be good for their survival and good for their thriving. Do you know what I mean? So like, what would cause someone to thrive? The cult leader and the organization taps into those parts of a person and then pollutes it. And now they find themselves in this controlled environment. But that means those parts are there, and we're not talking about them, but I talk about them, right? And so that's what caused me to develop my foundations or pillars of frame. That's where you have programming, where someone sees the world a certain way, but they have to see it in a way that fits your values and fits your belief and fits your direction. For example, if a girl thinks that her social media account is hers to do with whatever she wants when she's in a relationship, and that, she can talk to guys and attract guys and followers, and that's fine. And she can go out on girls' nights and you don't get to know what she does, and that's fine. That's what, the average woman today thinks that that's normal. Think that's what it is. And it's like, it's like, if she thinks that, though, she doesn't have a good mental picture of what she needs to do to be in a healthy relationship. She doesn't have good boundaries or standards for a good, committed, long-term relationship.
Neither of the genders do.
What's that?
Neither of the genders currently do.
Neither of them do, because guys accept that and even support it and whatever. But it's not like the idea that you can keep these secrets, for example. It's just like, that's not conducive of building a life 20, 30, 50 years, having children, all that stuff. Like, and so you have to reprogram the way that they think, which means that, but not through deception or cohesion, but through frame, through communication skills that cause them to challenge their current paradigm, and through relationship skills where you reward good behaviors and you don't reward bad behaviors, and you're not afraid to instill a boundary if those bad behaviors go too far. And so all of these things are healthy ways of communicating and programming someone. When a girl is having a great experience with you and she's had really a roller coaster of kind of hell where there's good times, but there's a lot of bad times in the sexual marketplace, she starts to question some of these ideas that she has. You know what I mean? And if she feels like she's winning and beating her girlfriends who are stuck in the sexual marketplace by following your frame, now you've caused a reprogramming to happen. Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, her morals and values start to line up with yours. And that's a necessity, either because whenever any girl you pick is not going to 100% align with you. Mm-hmm. But you have to get there before you get too far into that relationship. Preferably get there on the important items before a commitment.
That leads. I really want to. That ties into these two super chats. I want to real quick. Chosky $5 super chat says weak men attempt to assert dominance by keeping the rest below them. Strong men lift the tide that raises all ships. That includes the woman you're with. Your woman should be getting bossed up in a relationship with you. Men like Paul and MLD raise the standard because they understand that the world is better when all men are playing their game playing on their top game. Money muscles game, everything. Game unlocks the mind. Sexual dynamics unlocks the body in long-term relationships. Also, Corey Rain is a milquetoast joke. MLD and Paul, the best. Subscribe, Telegrams, Paul courses. It'll set you free. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you, dog. And dude, like, I just see these guys look, because like it's hard for me to look at the average guy and not look at like, oh, this guy's fucked. This guy's walking fucked. He doesn't get it yet. He doesn't see it.
Just so backwards. And you're like,
yeah.
And sometimes the answer, like with a client, will just be like, what? Just do this, man. What do you mean? Mm-hmm. And then he's like, oh, fuck. You see the light bulb going. He's like, God, it's so easy. I feel stupid. It's like, don't feel stupid. You've just been programmed by society to think so backwards from what the right answer is that you just don't see it yet. And that's why you're here and we do it, and then they eventually over time, they start seeing the right answers, but it's that programming. Women don't think, for example, that they have to do anything to make a guy happy ever. In the programming. Now, I'm not saying all women think that way, but the programming, the social programming is that women just, they need to show up and they're the valuable component in that relationship, and they don't need to do anything to please a man. A man needs to be doing all the things to please her. It's a very one-sided way of showing up. If you don't program her differently from that, there is no relationship you're going to have. And so but you can't program a girl by going, let me teach you, let me tell you. That's not how it works. What happens is it's behavioral. It's by instituting consequences and rewards, and then having conversations where then you make statements, for example, like, that's not how I like to do things. And the statement you make is so opposing to what she's done, and it makes her question herself. But a lot of guys are not wanting to make a statement that a girl would disagree with. So they're not sitting there and saying like, yeah, I think it's really trashy when girls overpost on their social media like that. Knowing the girl in front of you does that. Right?
Bro, if a woman cooks the food wrong, I'm like, hey, listen, we got to have a talk. Like,
yeah.
That rice was terrible. You overcooked it.
Now get in the basement. No, but no, but I mean, like, it's just like, it's guys are so afraid to institute a value if they think that the girl's going to disagree. So then they're like, they don't talk about it or what. It's just
Oh my
like, no,
God.
man, that's not what it is. And
I see it in my
to be,
married friends too, and I'm like, lo, how the mighty have fallen. I'm like,
yeah,
no, not you too, man.
yeah, yeah. Well, because they're just afraid of upsetting again, the girl usually now holds the sexual frame. She says yes or no based on her mood and emotions. So then the guy is trying to appeal to her emotions. Well, if that's what's happening, who runs the relationship? Not the guy, right? And so you take that off the table of, I'm not getting in a relationship unless we are free use. In other words, there is no to sex, or else there is no commitment. That's just the way it works. And I'll fucking end it tomorrow. If you want to change those terms, well, then there's no relationship. And that's actually biblical for those who are wondering about the morals. But when you decide that,
Good work, soldier.
You take sex as a tool for manipulation on either side of the from a guy or from a girl, off the table. Now sex is something that you do to make each other happy. It's not something that you use and you hold someone hostage based on your emotions. Now it's like, okay.
We talked about that yesterday. We had this psychologist on.
Nice.
We talked about this, having the sex hostage bargaining chip is a big no for neither side should do it. It's not okay. That's very fucking evil.
Yeah, it is. And in most relationships, that's exactly how it is, whether they admit it or not. And so the guy is always appealing to the woman's emotions instead of saying, oh, you're in a bad mood. Well, that is your problem. Right. And it's not that you're not going to want to make the person you're with happy, but you're just not taking responsibility for their emotions. Those are two different things. Hey, I'm here to make you happy, but if you're going to choose not to be happy because you want to do something outside of standards for what our relationship is, that's your problem. You can be unhappy. What? Because I'm not going to do exactly what you want right now. Then if you choose to be unhappy, then you're going to do it away from me and be miserable by yourself, and let me know when you're finished, and then we can, interact like normal again, right? And you just you set these boundaries, you set standards. That's what causes them to challenge their paradigm. That's what causes true learning, is that they know to be with you, they have to comply with certain things that they maybe didn't agree to ideologically. So then they start to question that ideology, and then they ask you questions, in which case you can now have good conversations and they're ready to listen. You can make statements, you can, and there's persuasive ways to do that. That's where game comes in. Next thing you know, they're echoing your values. If they didn't bring in to the relationship your values to begin with, they're echoing it as time progresses. The other part that cults do, but we do it, I recommend doing it in a healthy way, is isolation. So a big part of making a cult work is they isolate their followers from friends, family, outside influences. So they become indoctrinated with the cult, right? What I talk about is something called idealized isolation, which means you do have to isolate yourself. Like we just talked about, not just allowing ourselves to be on social media and let it poison our brains, right? I have to isolate in order for my own mental health and own like positive identity. I have to isolate myself from polluted bullshit input. We all do. And so you're just instilling it, but I'm not taking myself out of the world or having someone else isolate me physically. So that's the difference. You're not having your girl physically isolate herself from others and live. You're not really saying go to the basement, right? But idealistically, when she goes and hangs out, has lunch with her friends, and all of her friends are talking about the ratchet shit they're doing out in the sexual marketplace, when she goes, you know what? I know that I'm better than they are by not doing that shit. And my beliefs are better than theirs. And I've now she's isolated herself from them ideologically, right? And that's what she has to do, because the values out in the world are only going to point you to destruction in your relationship. So
I was going to say it's like an ideological isolation.
It's ideological, correct. And that's why I call it idealized isolation, because you're ideologically separating yourself from all of those destructive ideas that are going to lead you to failure. Anyone who's successful in anything, by the way, has to do that. You know this. You're successful in business. You know you have to separate yourself from the loser mindset in the hive mindset of other people who are failing. And you have to only allow in the ideas that are going to allow you to succeed. And if you don't do that, it's not going to work. And so that's what we have to do with our relationships. And we have to have a girl who's on board with that. When a girl sees that life is so much better behind this fucking protective wall that we've built mentally, then they become more bought into that. This is the same thing that happens in cults, but it's destructive. Because the ideology is broken and they're physically separated, they're coerced into it and all these things. But with your own free will and doing it, because of it's just a better way of living your life, and they can see that and experience that, and they're not so broken on the inside that they're allowing themselves to see it and experience it, then it kind of does it for itself. And then having what I call a emotional or neurochemical, like sometimes I interchangeably use the word emotion or neurochemistry, call it a neuro or dependency. So neurochemical dependency. So what that means is she doesn't feel right if she's not with you. If she goes too many days without having sex with you, she starts to feel off. Her well-being is tied to the bond she has with you. That's what a pair bond is. So you want to fuel that in the relationship so that she's bonded. If she doesn't care at all, if you stay or go, that's not good. You know what I'm saying? And so the idea of being in a relationship and receiving those benefits is that you're feeling bonded to that other person. So when you're not together, you miss each other.
Shut up and take my money.
And that happens through a lot of reward. So that's a lot of heavy reward that happens. That's your good sex, your good dates, great experiences, first time doing this and that and the other together, things that are special between you two. That's what creates that dependency. And then the last part, which is very misunderstood, is dread. Now, dread with anything you value, you're going to have a fear of losing that thing. It doesn't have to be an unhealthy fear or an anxiety. That's where people get it wrong. But like in my relationship, I don't want to lose my relationship, right? And so there's a certain dread I'm going to have as a man with my relationship. Now I use my leadership skills and masculine skills to manage that in the right way so that I don't lose frame. That's what guys have to do. Guys are afraid of losing their girl and then they lose frame. I understand that my frame is more important than her, because without my frame, I don't have her. And so when you really embrace that idea, then dread doesn't take over. But there's always should be an element of, I don't want to lose this person I care about. And she should have that feeling about you. It's not about her worried. She shouldn't be worried that you're going to like cheat on her or whatever, because you have no loyalty and you have no integrity or something, right? That's not what she should be worried about necessarily. But she should be worried about you having boundaries and standards. And if she's not meeting those, that you do leave. That could be a fear, not something she should keep her awake at night, but something that makes her think, you know what, I'm not going to do this thing that's going to upset the guy I'm with.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to upset him, because that makes me feel insecure and unstable. That's dread. You know what I mean? And those are the 4 pillars. So the 4 pillars: programming, idealized isolation, emotional or neurochemical dependency, and dread are what your frame is based off of. And if you lose traction on any one of those 4, you lose frame.
Right.
And that's it. And I learned that stuff from really observing cults and then observing really healthy relationships. So at one point, I spent a few years interviewing elderly couples. What I thought I would find, and they love talking because nobody talks to them. And so when I see that old couple that seemed to still have it, I would just talk to them. I'd say, hey, you know what? I'm a I'm kind of a psychologist in a way. I help people with relationships. You two seem really happy. Do you mind if I just talk to you for a few minutes? I'd like to learn some lessons from you, like what it took for you guys to get here. And I just start asking questions. And I've probably interviewed definitely over 20 couples, like not a million couples. Really hard to find because most people are not happy. So you're talking about like 10% of the people who have a lasting relationship, but learned a lot of lessons from that. And what I also learned was that these 4 pillars of frame were present in their relationships, whether they knew it or not. You know what I mean? They were there. The reason why they didn't drift off and go for a better deal when there was hardship was because these 4 pillars were in play. If they weren't in play, then in scenarios where that older couple had been divorced from a previous person, those 4 pillars weren't in play. Something broke in those pillars, and then the relationship broke, frame was lost, and then they end up divorcing, they end up leaving, in some cases cheating, believe it or not. I had one couple who cheated and they were together for like 40 some years and super happy. Not saying that's good they cheated, but my point is no frame. That was the difference. You know what I mean?
Mr. Wolf, $5 super chat. For the dudes that are too literal, Paul is saying say no to sex. There is nuance, correct? I know there are other dudes, but dudes might be thinking literal, like she's sick, etc. I mean, yeah, of course. If she's
so if let's say my girl is having really bad cramps and it's like she doesn't feel good, right? And so she knows that we have sex like pretty much every day, but almost every day. So and there's different levels. Sometimes it's fast. Sometimes it's like a long time. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a drawn out scene. Sometimes it's just spontaneous or whatever. Like we enjoy it. We do that all the time. She knows if it's coming at this point, and she'll say, oh, she'll go, my cramps, I'm just really not feeling it. My cramps are really bad tonight. And then I'll just give her a kiss on the forehead and be like, that's good. It's all right. You know what I mean? We'll make up for it tomorrow. And then that's it. But she's not allowed to go, no, I'm not in the mood. No, you know what I mean? And pull that shit. She's not allowed to pull the, oh, I'm just not. And then especially not allowed to do that, a week straight. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I mean, right?
I had Gia McCool on the show, and Gia is a babe. She's a fucking American 10. And she was telling me, she's like, anytime my husband wants sex, like it is my duty to give it to him,
Sure.
And she's Lebanese, so a little bit different. I want to read the super chat real quick. Last one of the night. Thank you so much, Chonsky, for all them $3 super chat. They're like voodoo temptresses. The moment their charms and chants don't work on you is the moment you are definable and different. From there, it causes her to level up her game and engage with you instead of the other way around. Be the prize, gents. Yeah. Wise words once again. Paul, it's been a great episode. 2.5 hours. Shout out to everybody who actually watched from beginning to end. Shout out to you, Mr. Wolf. Also, internet is clout, $2 super chat, but without frame, you're cooked. We'll be back next week. Paul's gonna interview me. So it's gonna be a good one, and we're just laying the foundation before we keep going because we have so many more lessons and episodes planned out for you guys. This has been off to an amazing start. If you guys are liking the game room, you gotta let us know in the comment section, especially you guys who never comment, because we have to know if you like it or not. Because if you don't comment, then we don't know. So that we call you to comment. It is a 5-second endeavor. You can do it. And we'll catch you guys on the next time. See you later. Peace out.